That time I got threatened with termination by the CIO for trying to do my job. This goes back to 2019 when I was working on a mass workstation refresh to get everyone off of the 10-year-old Windows 7 PCs and replace them with modern Windows 10 systems. This was partly because Windows 7 was now EOL, and also partly because the new ERP system was not certified for use on Windows 7. If it wasn't for the ERP upgrade, the Windows 7 machines would probably all still be in service to this day. Also, please forgive my jumble of a narrative. I work in tech support, I am not an author. I had replaced all but one machine, out of approximately 110 in total, at this point. The last user was the one person in the entire organization that was using QuickBooks to track finances for 2 of the company's subsidiaries. Of course, since his machine was 10 years old, he was on an equally old version of QuickBooks that not only did the company misplace the installation media for, they also no longer had the product key. And as it was EOL, we were solid getting any support from Intuit without paying more than what a new version would cost. I also learned that that version wouldn't run on Windows 10 even if we did have a way to reinstall it. Given this dilemma, and me being on the bottom of the org chart, I deferred to my manager regarding what to do. He had asked me at least 3 times to get him prices for a new license to QuickBooks Enterprise, but balked on the cost each time. Ultimately, we reached what was supposed to be a temporary compromise where the Windows 7 machine would be pulled from the user's desk, a Windows 10 machine installed in its place, and remote desktop set up on the Windows 7 machine for him to remote in and do the QuickBooks work on the old system. I worked with the user on scheduling a time to do the swap out while he was going to be out of office for a few days and a time that I could show him how to remote into the Windows 7 box when he got back. I got as far as setting up the Windows 10 machine in the lab to copy his documents, desktop icons, bookmarks, etc. from when his supervisor got word that I was in the process of replacing his computer. After explaining to her the workaround regarding the QuickBooks, I got the impression she didn't listen to a word I said. She went on a rant about how I was not to touch his machine without her permission. At this point I continued on with the file transfer and notified my boss, who said he would address the concerns. I didn't hear anything else, and proceeded to schedule a date to do the swap. Right after swapping in the Windows 10 machine, but before getting remote desktop set up on the Windows 7 box, the Karen manager started ripping into me for not listening to her and ignoring her and being insubordinate. I told her to talk to my supervisor as we needed to get rid of the Windows 7 machines due to security concerns and that Windows 7 was not compliant with the new ERP system. Cue a story from her that when the new ERP system goes live it will have the ability to import directly from a QuickBooks file. I walked away and proceeded on with my kludge of a workaround, as that is the order I had from my supervisor, and sent my supervisor an email note detailing the encounter, to which I got no reply. The next morning my boss comes to me saying he has heard a complaint from the Karen manager. I recounted what occurred and he again promised me he would look into it. He also stated that the Karen was mistaken, and that while possible to import accounting records from QuickBooks into the new ERP system, it was not a simple task and the same capability exists in the old system too. I went on about my business until early afternoon when one of my coworkers took a phone call from the CIO. In this phone call, the CIO was not happy as Karen manager had escalated the complaint to him. My coworker didn't know what the ordeal was about and I told him what it was regarding, and he transferred the CIO to my phone. I tried to explain that we had a workaround to the CIO and that we needed to get him off of the EOL Windows 7 machine, but he went on a ramble about how Karen was reporting that I was refusing to do my job. I tried standing my ground as my manager was the one that okayed the swap and workaround, but he demanded that I put the old Windows 7 machine back in place, and casually mentioned that he would consider termination if I continue to ignore orders. After the phone call ended, I discussed the situation with my coworkers and tried to reach my manager, who had conveniently disappeared. Since the CIO was demanding it, I put the Windows 7 machine back in place and updated it as much as I could, and there the Windows 7 machine sat, in service, up until the day I left at the end of 2020. I quickly noticed after this that my boss had a habit of actively avoiding this Karen of a manager. I had even seen him drop what he was doing and slip out of the back door to the office when she would walk in. Story 2. Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night. This is sorta long, so grab a cuppa or a can of, and hang on. Way back in the dark ages, 1990 or 1991, which means prior to the interwebs and cell phones, I used to do field service on electronic automobile engine analyzers. Now this wasn't that cutesy modern thing that plugs into the single OBD2 port under your dash near your steering column. These analyzers were the size if a small refrigerator, with 6 or 8 separate electrical leads to read all your engine was doing, plus it had a vacuum pump with a 14-foot hose and 2-foot SS pipe that went into the exhaust pipe to read your vehicle emissions, weight against timing, RPM, charging system, etc. My customer base was 111.65% professional mechanics. You know, the guys who troubleshoot your car when it's not running right. Guys who understand that you must check both electrical and mechanical elements of your car to find a problem. At the time I was living in central NC and the customer in question was on the Outer Banks, near Nag's Head. On a good day, at 55 miles per hour, then the national speed limit, it was a good 5-hour drive one way. Again, I repeat, a good day. We would call the service desk throughout the day, to close calls. Then get the straight skinny on call B, call the customer for call B, and schedule the work. On the service call in question, the customer called the company's service line and reported that his analyzer was not working. I found out that said customer in Nag's Head had a problem late in the day, and called them immediately to see if I could solve this over the phone and save 10 hours of driving time. Me is me. Customer is Ray. For in the dark ages, every old school auto shop was required to have at least one mechanic named Ray. My boss is Willie and Hotlanta. Ray's boss is. Well, yeah. Ray's boss. I call the customer, hello, this is Ray at auto shop across the street from the ocean, how can I help you? Me, Ray, this is me, with Engine Analyzers Incorporated, I hear you have a problem. Ray, hey Bo, your machine is dead and we need it fixed ASAP. Technically it was his boss's machine, we just did the maintenance and repairs, based on his boss's yearly service contract. Hold that point Plaza, me, Ray, when you push the start, stop button on the front panel, does the pump come on, do the lights come on and does the countdown start on the CRT? Yes, a CRT. I said it was the dark ages, Ray, the lights are on. Me, just the lights. But no pump sounds, no 3-minute warm-up countdown on the CRT. Ray. Nope, nothing. Me, okay, I'll be out there as early as I can get there tomorrow. All rat spit. Fast forward to 4:30 the next morning, huge thunderstorm wakes me up, stumble to the kitchen, turn on the radio. Tornado warnings, driving rain, reports of flooding. An interesting morning ahead altogether. 5:30 I leave the house headed east with Mother Nature playing games ahead of me. What with rain, wind, downed trees and numerous flooded road detours, the 5-hour good day trip took almost 8.5 hours of miserable driving trip, and usually I love driving. Get to the shop, ask for Ray, he comes out of the office, and leads me to the machine, chattering non-stop about how backed up they were getting because he is the only shop with an analyzer for 100 miles north, south or west. East, was just salt water, of course. I get to the analyzer, hit the start, stop button. It does nothing. No lights, no pump, not CRT, ergo no 3-minute countdown. It did nothing. Me, Ray, I thought you said the lights came on but no pump noises. Ray, looks up, points at the overhead lights, moves his hand in a broad circle and says, the lights are on. Me. No Ray, I asked if the lights on the machine came on. Pump stat, CRT, countdown. Ray, told you it does nothing, and he walks away. After a serious facepalm, I follow the first rule of any electrical troubleshooting, as it is, was and will always be, check to see if it's plugged in, regardless of the IT. Hell, even Scotty on Star Trek knew that when the dilithium crystals CRP'd out, you gotta get new ones so you can get enough power to reach warp speed. No dilithium crystals, no juice, no warp speed. I trace out the power cable, which runs up into the overhead rafters, where it plugged into a long drop cord, that ran across the shop about 25 feet, down the back wall, to a plug, that was laying on the workbench next to what looked like a brand new grinder, which was plugged in. I waddled over cursing under my breath, knowing how this was about to play out, unplugged the grinder, plugged in the drop cord, waddled back to the analyzer, pushed the start, stop button. It lights up, the vacuum pump hums to life, CRT shows the 3-minute countdown. Let it sit through that it hits 0, tells me it's ready. Ran the diag, no trouble found, all systems meets operable parameters. Now, remember the contract? Ray's boss paid for maintenance and repairs, not plugging in stuff. Engine Analyzers Incorporated company policy was, if we or our machine screw up or you need a normal repair or maintenance, we pay for parts and tech time inside your yearly contract. But if you screw up, you pay for parts and tech time. Ray's boss is now on the HOK for 8.5 hours of drive time, 42 seconds of tech time, on a 1-hour minimum, and 8.5-hour trip return time, based on the original drive out there. Ray went nuts when I told him how I fixed his problem, went nuttier when I handed him the bill. He stormed into the office and handed it to his boss, who went even nutser. Nuttier still. Ray's boss, I won't pay it, it's not my fault, I won't pay it. Me, well, I guess it isn't personally your fault, it's Ray's fault and Ray is your head mechanic, so you have to pay, and if you don't, we'll cancel your service contract and all your future calls. For 12 months from today, we'll be out of pocket. I don't make the rules, I'm just forced to enforce them. Ray's boss, I refuse to pay it. Who do I talk to about this thing? I won't pay it. Me, I can call my boss, Willie in Hotlanta. Ray's boss, I have his number here. So Ray's boss dials it, puts us on the speakerphone box, ring, ring, ring. Hello, this is Engine Analyzers Incorporated, I'm Willie in Hotlanta, how can I help you? Me Willie, it's me. Then gave him the whole 9 yards, with Ray's boss kibitzing all the way through, telling Willie in Hotlanta repeatedly how it wasn't his fault and he refused to pay. Willie in Hotlanta, well, it sounds like it's not your fault. Ray's boss is now grinning, but it does sound like it's Ray's fault and Ray is your head mechanic, so you have to pay, per the contract you signed, it says, and you agreed to pay for drive and tech time brought on by your shop practices. And if you don't pay, I'll just cancel your service contract and all your future calls. For 12 months from today, we'll be out of pocket. I don't make the rules, I'm just forced to enforce them. Ray's boss gave Willie in Hotlanta a piece of his mind, which he truly couldn't afford to lose, mind you, cursed a blue streak about how we were crooks. Then gives his company credit card number to Willie. Willie in Hotlanta ran it, got the bank approval, and he told me to head home. It may have been my imagination, but I could swear that I could hear Ray's boss yelling at Ray, for at least half the 8.5-hour drive home. I have other crazy customer stories from various jobs to tell, but the mechanic who didn't plug in the electronic equipment and thought it was dead, takes the cake.